There's a story whispered in the oldest corners of heaven, a tale even angels hesitate to tell. They say one angel paused when God judged Lucifer, stepping forward when all others retreated. He didn't rebel, didn't join the fallen. He simply tried to save a soul already lost. But that single act of compassion would cost him dearly. In heaven, obedience isn't just loyalty. It's the law. And even love, when misdirected, can be seen as defiance. Who was this angel? Why did he act? And what did God do to the angel who dared to try and save the devil? This is the story of the angel who tried to save Lucifer and faced God's wrath. Welcome to Bible Mysteries. Before we delve in, if stories like this resonate with you, please take a moment to like, subscribe, and click the bell icon. The war in heaven, they say, ended in a light so intense it left even the stars trembling. When the echoes of rebellion faded, heaven fell silent, not in peace, but in stunned disbelief. Every angel had taken their place. Those loyal to the throne stood bathed in God's light. Those who followed Lucifer had fallen, consumed by a fire never intended for angels. But in that silence, one angel remained unmoved. He stood at the edge of heaven's gates, watching as the fallen vanished beyond eternity's horizon. Watching as friends he once sang with were ripped from glory, screaming, falling into endless darkness. His hands trembled, not from fear, but because his heart was breaking. The others returned to their ranks, wings folded, faces set with divine resolve. Heaven had been cleansed. Justice had been served. But to this angel, justice felt less like light and more like profound loss. He turned his gaze towards the abyss below, where heaven's brilliance gave way to the smoke of judgment. And in that pit, he thought he saw him. Lucifer, once radiant, now burning and broken. A voice thundered across the sky. It is finished. The voice of God, absolute and unwavering. And yet this angel hesitated. He didn't dare speak, not yet. But deep within him, a whisper grew louder than heaven's silence. What if he could be saved? That question was the genesis of everything. A thought no angel should have entertained. Mercy for the condemned. He tried to dismiss it, reminding himself of the pronouncements. Lucifer chose pride. He sealed his own fate. But his heart refused to be silent. It felt as though a wound had opened within his spirit. He remembered the beginning, when Lucifer still sang beside the throne, when light was undivided, when heaven bore no scars. And that memory now haunted him. He closed his eyes, his wings trembling. Around him, angels sang victory hymns, their voices like rivers of flame. But he couldn't join in. Every word of praise felt heavy, almost wrong. And as he looked down again into the abyss, something strange occurred. He saw movement. He saw one of the fallen, Lucifer himself, reaching upward faintly, as if struggling against the pull of eternal darkness. And in that instant, his heart betrayed his duty. He took a single step forward. That was all it took. The light surrounding him flickered, as if heaven itself questioned his intentions. The other angels turned, sensing hesitation, something rare, something dangerous. One of them, a mighty warrior with eyes like molten gold, called out, "Brother, where are you going?" But he didn't answer. He couldn't because he didn't even know. All he knew was that he couldn't simply stand there and watch a soul, even Lucifer's, be erased forever. And for the first time since creation, an angel of heaven questioned not God's authority, but the finality of his judgment. He whispered under his breath, "Lord, what if mercy still has meaning?" The skies above him rumbled, not in anger, but in something deeper, disappointment. He felt it. Heaven felt it. But he couldn't stop himself. And as his wings spread, light gathering around them like fire, he looked one last time toward the throne. His eyes filled not with rebellion, but with tears. Then he descended downward toward the realm where no angel was ever meant to go, toward the pit where heaven's light couldn't reach. He wasn't falling. He was kneeling in motion, surrendering everything to a decision his heart couldn't reverse, for love, for mercy, for one lost brother. The angels above watched him vanish, none daring to follow. They didn't understand what they had just witnessed. An act of love or defiance. No one knew. But one thing was certain. Heaven had witnessed something new, something dangerous, something deeply human. Heaven's light faded behind him like a closing sunrise. Every flap of his wings echoed through the emptiness, each beat slower than the last, heavier, as if the weight of what he had just done clung to him like chains. He had never known darkness before, not this kind. In heaven, even shadows were gentle. They danced, they shimmered. But here the darkness swallowed light. It didn't bend or retreat. It consumed. And the deeper he went, the louder the silence became. No songs, no wind, no presence of the divine. Only echoes, broken, distant, like screams that never found their way out. He felt his light dimming. The radiance that marked him as heaven's own began to flicker. It frightened him because for the first time, he didn't know if God was still watching, or if he had turned his face away. He whispered, his voice trembling, "Father, if I'm wrong, let my light die, but if there's mercy still, let it burn." The void didn't answer. He continued to fall, not in rebellion, but in supplication. His wings caught bursts of fading gold as he passed through layers of forgotten realms where time held no sway and light existed only as memory. Then suddenly a whisper. It wasn't divine. It was fractured, like wind breaking through shattered glass. "Why are you here?" He froze mid-air, scanning the darkness. The air around him shifted, forming shapes, shadows that almost looked like angels, but twisted, torn, wings burned black, feathers like ash. The fallen moved like ghosts, circling him slowly, their eyes like dying embers, their faces marked with pain older than the world. Heaven sent another. One hissed, "No," another sneered. "He doesn't belong to them anymore." He raised his hands not to fight, but in peace. "I am not your enemy," he said softly. "I came for one of you." The shadows laughed, a low, hollow sound, and then one of them, larger, darker, stepped forward. His face was almost unrecognizable beneath the ruin, yet there was something familiar in his gaze. Lucifer. Once he was light itself. Now he looked like the memory of it, fragments of beauty still hidden beneath endless decay. His wings, though charred, still held faint glimmers of the glory they once possessed. Lucifer tilted his head, studying the glowing figure before him. "You came down here?" The angel's voice quivered. "Yes." "To do what?" Lucifer asked, his tone bitter and calm. "Pity me?" The angel shook his head slowly. "To understand?" Lucifer smirked, a haunting, empty gesture. "There is nothing left to understand. I made my choice. I chose freedom, and now I wear its chains." But the angel's eyes softened. "You call them chains, yet you defend them." Lucifer's expression darkened. "You wouldn't understand." "Then make me," the angel said, his voice rising not in defiance, but in aching sincerity. "Help me see what made you turn away from the one who made us both." Lucifer stared at him for a long time, longer than eternity could measure. Then he whispered, "Because I loved myself more than his silence." The words struck deep. The angel felt them. The pride, the pain, the loneliness. For the first time he saw not rebellion but regret. Lucifer turned away. "You shouldn't be here. If he sent you, you've failed already. And if you came on your own." He paused, his voice cracking like thunder in a storm. "Then you're no longer one of them." The angel's heart ached. He wanted to speak, to tell him that wasn't true, that heaven's mercy was greater than wrath. But even as he opened his mouth, he felt it. A sudden heat, a pulse of divine energy from above. Heaven had noticed. The light that followed wasn't gentle. It was judgment. It cracked through the void, splitting the darkness with divine fury. The fallen screamed and scattered like shadows before dawn. Lucifer shielded his face, and even he looked afraid. The angel fell to his knees, overwhelmed by the power pouring through the air. And then a voice, not thunder, not rage, but something worse. Disappointment. "You would reach for one I have condemned." The angel lowered his head. Tears burned trails down his face as he whispered, "I only sought to show mercy." "Mercy?" The voice echoed. "Mercy without obedience is not love. It is rebellion clothed in kindness." The skies above trembled. Lucifer turned away. Even he couldn't bear to watch what would follow. The angel lifted his eyes, filled with sorrow. "Then let my mercy be my punishment." And as he said it, the light engulfed him, not to destroy, but to strip away. His wings dimmed, his armor cracked. He wasn't cast out like Lucifer, but he wasn't allowed to rise again either. He was left in the space between, neither fallen nor free, a watcher between heaven and hell, forgotten, silent, carrying the weight of both mercy and mistake. And for ages, his name was never spoken again, until one day long after, when a prophet in exile saw a vision of a glowing figure standing between the realms of the living and the dead and asked, "Who are you?" And the figure replied softly, "I am Jerem, the mercy of God." Time, if time even existed where he was, moved differently now. There was no dawn, no dusk, only a horizon that never changed, suspended between light and shadow. That's where he woke, his once golden armor now dulled to a quiet bronze. His wings not white, not black, but a haunting blend of both, like light struggling to remember itself. And around him, silence. He wasn't in heaven. He wasn't in hell. He was somewhere in between. When he tried to rise, his knees trembled. He reached for his sword, but it was gone. All that remained was the faint mark where it had once rested. He whispered softly, "Is this death?" But no answer came. The air felt heavy, as if it carried every unspoken sorrow in creation. He looked up, expecting to see the light of the throne, but above him was only a dim golden haze, too bright to be dark, too dark to be holy. He was alone, yet not forgotten, because in the stillness, a presence stirred. From the mist, shapes began to form, faint glowing silhouettes of souls. They drifted toward him like lost stars, whispering prayers, regrets, and cries too old for words. Some looked afraid, some looked peaceful, all looked lost. The angel felt their sorrow, and it pierced him deeper than any blade. He understood then why he had been left here. This was not punishment. It was purpose. For the first time since his fall, he heard the faint echo of that divine voice again. Not angry this time, not distant. "You wished for mercy, then bear witness to it." He turned, and before him unfolded the boundary between worlds. The thin golden river that divided the living from the dead. Souls stood upon its banks, trembling, uncertain of where they would go. He could see heaven's light on one side and the faint aching shadows of damnation on the other. And in that moment, he knew his calling wasn't to erase his mistake. It was to redeem it. He would guide them. He would help the lost find peace, even if he never could. He knelt at the river's edge the same way he once knelt before God, and whispered, "Then let this be my service." A warm wind moved through the air, almost like a sigh from heaven itself. And from that day forward, whenever a soul left the world of the living, they would see a figure waiting at the border of eternity, not radiant like the others, not terrifying like the fallen, but gentle, eyes filled with sorrow, wings touched by twilight. He never introduced himself. He never spoke of what he'd done. But those who saw him said there was mercy in his silence, a strange, quiet comfort in his presence. Some would later say his name with reverence. Others would whisper it in fear. Jerem, the angel who watches over the souls of the dead, the one who weeps for what heaven lost and what hell became. Even now, they say when a righteous soul passes from the earth, a soft voice greets them at the veil. "Do not fear. You are seen. You are loved. You are forgiven." That voice is his, once an angel who questioned judgment, now the angel who carries mercy through the gates of eternity. Not a rebel, not a hero, but something far rarer. A reminder that even in heaven, love comes with a cost. The river was quiet that day. The souls moved slowly, drifting through the golden mist like leaves carried by a gentle wind. Jerem knelt beside the water, tracing faint ripples with his fingertips. Each ripple carried a prayer, a memory, a heartbeat once living. He had grown used to the quiet. The ache of solitude had become almost holy, until that moment when the air began to shift. A sound pierced through the stillness. Wings, not like those of the departed. These were powerful, radiant, alive with heaven's fire. He didn't turn right away. He already knew who it was. The light grew stronger, reflecting against the golden surface of the river, until a figure stepped through it, tall, armored, his presence shaking the air itself. Michael, the archangel of war, the defender of heaven. Jerem rose slowly, his once golden armor now dim beside Michael's brilliance. For a moment, neither spoke. The air between them was thick with years, centuries of silence, of questions that never found words. Finally, Michael broke it. Lucifer still whispers your name. Jerem's heart trembled. He hadn't heard that name spoken aloud in eons. He remembers you as the only one who reached for him, Michael continued. He calls you the merciful fool. A faint, sorrowful smile crossed Jerem's face. Perhaps I was, but even fools have purpose. Michael studied him, torn between admiration and grief. You risked everything for one who spat on the light. For that, heaven could have erased you. Jerem looked at him with quiet certainty. I didn't risk everything, Michael. I gave everything, and somehow I was still given more. He gestured toward the souls drifting by. Look at them. Lost, broken, imperfect, yet loved enough to be guided home. If this is exile, then I welcome it. Michael turned his gaze toward the souls, tiny sparks of mortal lives shimmering like embers. For the first time, his armor seemed to dim slightly, as though humbled by the sight. He whispered, You always saw what we didn't. Jerem's eyes softened. No, I only saw what I was meant to feel. A quiet fell between them again, but this time it wasn't tense. It was holy. Michael finally looked at him and said, Heaven hasn't forgotten you, Jerem. You were punished for compassion, but heaven still calls you one of us. Jerem bowed his head. I am what he made me to be, even in the silence. Michael hesitated, then stepped forward and placed a hand on his brother's shoulder. The touch glowed softly, like sunlight breaking through clouds. You may never return, but the throne still shines on you. Remember that. Jeremiel closed his eyes, a tear catching in the glow. Then tell him, I never stopped loving him. Michael nodded and with a burst of light spread his wings once more. Before he departed, he turned one last time. You're still an angel, Jerem. Don't ever let your sorrow convince you otherwise. And then he was gone, back into heaven's fire. Jerem stood alone again, the air still warm from Michael's presence. He looked at the river, at the souls still moving, and whispered, Even warriors need mercy. And from the distance above, for just a moment, he thought he heard the faint sound of God's voice. Not thunder, not law, but approval. Heaven had grown silent. The rebellion was over. Lucifer and his followers were gone, cast into the abyss, where their light was swallowed by eternal night. The echoes of their screams had faded into memory. But one angel still could not find peace. Jerem stood alone at the edge of heaven's radiant plains, where the golden light met the endless void. His wings hung low, heavy, not from exhaustion, but from the weight of something forbidden, doubt. He watched as other angels rebuilt heaven's gates, their songs echoing like waves of forgiveness. Yet he felt no harmony in their melody. In his chest, there was only a quiet ache, because he still thought about him. Lucifer, not the rebel, not the deceiver, but the friend he once knew, the one who sang beside him in the choirs, who dreamed of creation, who stood closest to God's light. And so, one day, Jeremiel did something no angel had ever dared. He approached the throne. Imagine that scene. The throne of God shining like 10,000 suns wrapped in thunder and fire. Around it stood countless angels bowing in silence, their faces hidden behind veils of light. And then one angel stepped forward, alone, trembling. Jerem's voice was faint, but steady. My Lord, forgive my question, but was there truly no other way? The air in heaven shifted. The music stopped. Even the seraphim turned their heads. God did not answer immediately. His light pulsed once, like the slow beat of eternity itself. You question my justice? Jerem fell to his knees, wings folded in fear. Never, my lord. I only seek to understand. He was our brother. I saw the sorrow in his eyes when he fell. If redemption is your nature, why did the gates close forever? The question hung in the air like lightning about to strike. For a long time there was silence. Then God spoke, not in wrath, but in a voice that carried the sorrow of creation itself. Because even love cannot heal what refuses to be healed. Jerem's eyes burned with tears of light. He bowed low, whispering, "Then what of those who still love him?" God's light dimmed slightly, as though heaven itself mourned that truth. Those who love what I have condemned risk falling beside it. And in that moment, Jerem understood. Love could be both a gift and a curse. He rose slowly, the words of God echoing through his soul like thunder across eternity. But still, deep inside, he couldn't let go. He couldn't stop believing that maybe, somehow, one day, even the fallen could be redeemed. And heaven watched him walk away, an angel torn between divine obedience and the dangerous mercy burning inside him. That night, for the first time in the history of heaven, an angel wept. Tears fell like drops of gold onto the radiant floor of paradise. And though no one saw it happen, the echo of his sorrow reached even the depths below, where a broken figure in darkness looked up and whispered a name he hadn't spoken in eons. Jeremiel. The bond between them wasn't dead, only buried. Days, if days could be counted in eternity, had passed since the Great Rebellion. The air still shimmered with fragments of what used to be song. Every angel had returned to their duties, but their voices didn't sound the same. The glory of heaven remained untouched, radiant as ever. Yet beneath its brilliance, something sacred had shifted. It was as if love itself had been wounded. And there, in the middle of it all, stood the angel whose tears had once fallen on heaven's floor, the one heaven itself could not forget, Jeremiel. He had not spoken since that night. His eyes, once filled with the gentle warmth of creation, now carried something almost human, sorrow. Other angels avoided looking at him for too long. Some feared that pitying him might make them question their own obedience. Others simply didn't know what to say to a being who had felt something heaven was never meant to feel. Heartbreak. One morning, as golden light spread across heaven's endless sky, Jerem stood by the edge of the celestial gates. Beyond them lay the empty stretch where light faded into the void, the place where the fallen ones had vanished. He didn't look down in defiance. He looked down in silence. He wasn't questioning God. He was questioning himself. Why did I feel mercy when I was meant to feel judgment? The question echoed inside him. It wasn't rebellion. It was confusion, pain, and the longing to understand the heart of the one he served. For in all his glory and wisdom, Jerem had never known that even obedience could hurt. Then came the voice, not thunder, not wind, but something that seemed to ripple through existence itself. Jeremiel. The sound made every light in heaven tremble. It wasn't anger. It wasn't disappointment. It was the kind of voice that could make eternity weep. Calm, infinite, and ancient. You still look toward what I have cast away. Jerem dropped to his knees instantly, his armor clattering softly against the golden floor. Forgive me, my lord, he whispered. I cannot turn my eyes away from mercy, for mercy is also yours. A silence followed, long, still, and heavy. Even the stars seemed to wait for God's reply. Then came the words, soft yet powerful enough to reshape a soul. You love deeply, Jerem, but you must understand. Even mercy must obey my will. The angel bowed his head lower, trembling. He didn't argue. He didn't question. But deep inside, he knew something had changed forever. That day, heaven learned that even among perfection, compassion could ache. And somewhere in the eternal distance between justice and mercy, an angel carried both. Maybe that's why his name was hidden for so long, as if even heaven itself didn't know how to describe him. Jerem, the angel who tried to understand what no one else dared to. the angel who looked at punishment and still saw love. And maybe that's what God saw in him, too. Because in the end, it wasn't wrath that defined Jerem. It was mercy, mercy that burned bright enough to shake heaven itself. So the next time you look at the stars, remember, not every tear in heaven fell from pain. Some fell from love.